Hello, everyone, and welcome to our event, The Threat of an Eviction Crisis, Capitalism's Eviction Crisis, and the Struggle for Housing for All. Discussion we are doing here today. My name is Liam. I am a member of the IMT here in Madison, and we're really excited to bring you this discussion today. The way this is going to work is first, my comrade Andrew will come on and give a thorough introduction to the topic. And then afterwards, we will split off into Zoom chat to continue the discussion, where you can come in, you can ask questions, and you can participate in the discussions. Now, the recording of the live stream of Andrew's presentation will be available afterwards on Facebook and YouTube. Let's see. So we are part of the IMT, the International Marxist Tendency, a international revolutionary socialist tendency operating in over 40 countries all over the world, fighting for the revolutionary transformation of society. And we have an international website, Marxist.com, which features articles and news from all over the world. Our national section, Socialist Revolution, has a website, socialistrevolution.org, where you can subscribe to our national paper and learn more about things that are happening here in the United States. Our local branch in Madison, Wisconsin, you can go to our website, imtmadison.org, and learn about membership, as well as subscribing for updates for our branch. Our branch also has Facebook and YouTube pages where you're likely watching this right now, and where you can follow for future updates from our branch, including more of these discussions that we will be having in the coming months on topics like austerity in the university, climate change, and other issues that are very pressing to us now in these times that we live in. Let's see. So for more information on those events and topics like that, make sure you stay tuned. If you want to join the fight and support us in this fight for the revolutionary transformation of society, you can donate. If you donate to us on Venmo at Ivy Geertz, and that should be flashing up on the screen. All right. So today's topic is a very important one, especially in the light of the COVID crisis. There has been record filing for unemployment, especially here in the United States. Over 50 million people in the first 6 months alone of the crisis have filed for unemployment. Tens and tens of millions of renters have been at a point where they haven't been able to make a rent payment. And of course, the relief that has been offered to the vast majority of the workers has been nowhere enough to cover the damages of losing their jobs due to the crisis, due to COVID, due to no fault of their own. And the moratorium on rents can only go so far, because eventually, they're going to have to pay that, which is why we talk about this threat of this looming wave of evictions. But we as Marxists argue, there's no reason why anybody should have to go without housing in a society where there are more vacant houses than there are people without homes. So to talk more about this, and to talk about the socialist solution for these evictions, for housing, for a way forward for our society that actually places the needs of the economy, what the economy does in modes of production, and how we do housing and everything else in terms of the actual needs of people. I'm going to introduce our speaker today, who's going to go into deep detail on all of these topics. Our speaker today, my comrade Andrew, has been a member of the IMT for close to 5 years now. He is the press secretary of our branch. He is a brilliant scholar and thinker, and is passionate about philosophy, psychology, economics, politics, and everything else that relates to Marxist theory and the revolutionary transformation of our society. He's also my longtime friend. So without further ado, I will introduce Andrew to kick off our discussion on the eviction crisis. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, Liam, for that very warm introduction. I really appreciate the kind words, and also a little bit of setup to the topic. When we talk about homelessness and eviction crisis in this country, in what is supposed to be the wealthiest, most advanced country in the history of the world, it's really disgusting and shameful that we are facing a situation that's completely artificial in terms of the resources being available, of not only the very high sort of homeless rate that has already existed, the eviction crisis that was already going on, but the utter inability to respond to the existing COVID crisis. We have a moratorium on rents that was passed at the end of the year, sort of emergency measure, but it's set to expire in March 31st. And as Liam was saying, if that is allowed to expire, that will be potentially 30 to 40 million Americans facing losing their home. And I've never been evicted myself, but one simply can just try to imagine how humiliating and life-destroying that process can be, and how terrible it is that we are facing this sort of situation, and how it shows really more in a very stark way, in an unprecedentedly stark way, the complete inability of capitalism to meet the needs of human beings in the 21st century. It has long been overdue. Has long lived past its sort of historical usefulness, as we say. It had its period of progress, of developing the means of production, developing our capacities to produce things, including housing, but it has produced those things and has produced housing for the sake of profit. And when human beings are tossed out on the street in the name of profit, I think it's quite reasonable to be outraged and to demand more, and to start to think about how can we replace this system, and how can we guarantee people in a world with so much abundance of material resources, how can we provide people with sort of the basic standards of living, including housing. The fact that housing is basically necessary to live a decent life, and the fact that we have far more than enough material resources, homes, to house everyone, those two things are enough to say, everyone deserves housing. Housing should be a human right. We should have housing for all. So the question is a bit on, how to get there, and how did we get here as well, and how did we get to this sort of dire situation? And and I'd say I'll elaborate on this more, but to the extent that housing, public housing, and solutions to the housing problem exist at all, are due to the class struggles of the past, and the fact that we still have this problem is simply a result of the class struggle, the fighting of working people to not go far enough and not to take the economy into our own hands. And so it's basically the problem is capitalism, and we'll get more into that later on. Sorry. But I want to rearticulate the fact that the evictions were a terrible problem, blight on our society before this crisis, and this crisis, before this COVID pandemic, but it is reaching simply disastrous proportions. This is a crisis that a problem that affects, that is the eviction problem, affects people of color, black people and Latino people particularly, as they disproportionately tend to own homes, in large part because of the racist housing policies of our countries, especially in the mid-20th century, as well as just the general racial disparities in income and wealth. Also tends to affect, urban working class people more. And so this is an issue all leftists should pay serious attention to. This is a deep problem, and will persist beyond on the pandemic. It's important to note, housing isn't necessarily, in the United States, housing is almost entirely a private for-profit business, like we were saying. There's some public housing, of course, and they're called projects. They're derided. People generally would prefer not to live there, although it's of course preferable to living without a home. But that does not have to be the case. In Europe, the working class fought for many concessions over the past century, and including decent public housing. And for example, Britain has public housing is available to anyone regardless of income. In Vienna, Austria, there's 60% public housing available. 60% of the population lives in public housing, and with that sort of approach to housing, even in bourgeois society, it doesn't become even in capitalism, it doesn't become a stigmatized thing that most of the population simply doesn't care about the quality of. They're actually quite nice, at least when they were originally built, and it just goes to it proves that we really don't need markets to build homes. I think markets are quite terrible in terms of responding to the needs of humans, especially in the housing market. But that a concerted, nationalized program to build public housing could satisfy our needs for quite quickly. In our program, we have not only that, we have the nationalization of vacant and foreclosed homes, we already had, before the COVID crisis, a demand for a moratorium on evictions. We had sort of the right for people who were unable to pay their mortgage to not go through foreclosure. We need we need a political solution. We need to fight as a class through class struggle, and demand that the housing market, the production of housing and the distribution of housing works for human beings. And we believe that can only be done through class struggle. There have been sort of heroic efforts in this trying time of evictions around tenant organizing, and we support all those efforts to stop evictions. We support the protests, rent strikes where they're possible and plausible. But we believe we need to go further. We need to go beyond individual apartment buildings. We need to go beyond tenant organizing, and link that struggle up to other struggles. Link it to labor struggle, to the struggle against the police, and more on that in a minute. Because fundamentally, as Engels wrote about this over 130 some years ago, the tenant doesn't have the power in the same relationship to the landlord that workers do to the capitalists, that workers do to their bosses. That our power as working class people, as people who have to work a job in order to pay to live, including paying rent, our power is more fundamentally located in our workplace. Our ability to stop production, stop society. Nothing in the world moves without the kind permission of the working class. And as a organized working class, we could use that power to demand to take control of production, including housing. Ultimately, what I'm saying here is that the housing crisis, the renters' struggle, is a class struggle, just as the police brutality struggle is a class struggle as well. And we need class struggle solutions. At the end of the day, the capitalists may have more money, but that money, only goes so far as they're able to pay people to do things. It's really the labor of working people that keeps the world going round. And politically, it's fundamentally that money has them better organized. They're able to pay for think about the Koch brothers have $1 billion worth of organizations that they funnel money through for lobbying and propaganda. Ultimately, the working class has all the power and simply is out organized. We have the power through linking up the labor movement, going on strike, demanding things in our program like an indefinite moratorium on rents and public housing, and right now for the COVID, we have an emergency sort of $1,000 minimum wage, $1,000 a week minimum wage, and well as in our general program, $25 an hour minimum wage, demanding that homes and vacant apartments be nationalized and given to people who need homes, demanding that more decent, affordable public housing be reconstructed. These are the methods that achieved public housing to the extent it exists, particularly in Europe and from the 20th century. And even more so, there were fights to stop evictions as they were happening. There were picket lines to stop sheriffs from evicting people. We're seeing sort of similar heroic efforts come up around ICE, stopping ICE from abducting people, and we've seen a huge, enormous movement around fighting police brutality, racist police brutality from the movement for Black Lives. And we should link up all these struggle against evictions, tenant organizing, along with the new rise in the labor movement, Amazon being organizing things, the movement for Black Lives. And we should put them all together in fighting capitalism, because capitalism is at the root of all these issues. And by workers organizing, taking control of our lives, setting up committees in our workplaces and in our communities to run things democratically ourselves, we can begin a new world where production is for the sake of human need, where no one needs to go without a home, without food, without a say in how society works, without the threat of police violence. Humans, we have everything materially we need to live in this sort of new world. All we need to do, and I believe, people want it. The vast majority of people would prefer to live in a world where they know their work is meaningful because they have a say and that it's being produced for the good of humanity, and they have their needs taken care of. They have more free time, and they know they have a place to live. How fundamental is that, to know, whether you know or not know that you have a place to live? So we in the IMT are building a leadership to put forward these ideas inside these movements and to ultimately build a party that can fight for these changes. And so we ask you to join us in discussing these ideas in the Zoom chat, to consider joining us, consider checking out our website, socialistrevolution.org and marxist.com. Check out our programs, see concretely what we're fighting for. I only named a small amount of it. And together, we can fight for a new world. And whether you join us or not, I hope to see you in the streets, see you at the picket lines, see you wherever the class is fighting. So, revolution and beyond.
Thank you, Comrade Andrew, for that excellent introduction to the topic. I really appreciated how you linked the eviction crisis and the struggle for housing to the class struggle as a whole and the political work that we're doing here at the IMT. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody for watching. This will end our live stream here, but I hope you join us in the Zoom discussion. There will be a link posted so that you can all find it there, and we hope to have you there to continue this discussion and dive a little bit deeper into this topic. Before we go, I just want to remind you that please reach out to us and continue to follow our work. You can go to imtmadison.org/join to sign up for our newsletter and inquire more about the organization. Of course, our paper is also available at imtmadison.org or socialistrevolution.org. If you'd like to support the forces of revolutionary socialism, you can donate to us on Venmo at Ivy Geertz. And that will about take us to the end of the event. Make sure you check out our events calendar. We do have several more events coming up this spring. So thank you everybody for joining us. We hope to see you in the continued discussion in Zoom. And of course, solidarity, comrades. May the fight continue. Thank you.
Is anyone there? Where's the link?